Right, so, well, welcome to the February 2nd meeting of the Westborough Planning Board. As is typical in this era, I will read the governor's order into the record and then we can get started. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Westborough Planning Board will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by the members of the public and/or parties with a right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the Town of Westborough's website at town.westborough.ma.us. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch the meeting may do so in the following manner. Members of the public wishing to participate from their remote location are encouraged to email their questions to planning@town.westborough.ma.us. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. The meeting can be viewed on Verizon Channel 24 and Charter Channel 191, or live streamed online at westboroughtv.org. In the event that we are unable to do so despite best efforts, we will post on the Town of Westborough's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. So I'd like to start with the A&R plans, since Randy, I think that's all you're here for.
Yes.
Okay, so why don't we get that out of the way so you can why don't you, Jim, do you have any comments on this first, or we'll just go to Randy?
Why don't you go to Randy, and then I'll tell you, Randy and I had a couple of discussions, and I think it's a good plan.
Okay, go ahead. Randy.
So this property is, the street address is 103 to 107 Denny Street.
Hey, Randy, can I interrupt? I'm sorry. Could you just state your name for the record? Sorry.
Randy Waterman, 31 East Main Street, WDA Design Group.
Thanks.
So this property has about a total of 6 acres. There are 516 feet of frontage on Denny Street and about 133 feet of frontage on South Street. The property is owned by Joanne Heiler. She's Dr. Hennessy's daughter, and he owned this property for years, and they've always thought about how do they preserve it. And she's been talking to us for 3 or 4 years about doing this A&R plan. It was really her last resort, but her plan is to create 2 building lots here. The lot 3, which is on the left side of the plan, that one she has under agreement. She's going to sell that one now to take care of her estate. And then she's going to try and hold on to lot 4 as long as she possibly can. The site, because it does have frontage on South Street, creating lot 4 with frontage on Denny and South Street would not meet your code because it would be a through lot. And Joanne Heiler has been talking to the abutters just to see if anybody was interested in sort of taking one of those pieces if we cut those off of lot 4. And originally we had envisioned possibly having her, she was talking to Mark Orlando over on Ruggles Pond, and then also McGordy on the corner of Denny and South. And they were both interested, and we cut that off and submitted the plan. And Jim had picked up that the parcel D, as we show it, if we left it the way it is as a separate non-building parcel, and over time the assessors merged it with Orlando's parcel, then we could be making his lot non-conforming by adding insufficient frontage on South Street. And the piece, parcel C, could actually be added to McGordy's because they have legal frontage on both streets, and this would actually make them a fully conforming lot. So that would not be a problem. But after we talked to Joanne Heiler about it, she said, I have no intention to sell lot 4. I hope it never happens, but if it does someday, she goes, I will keep those 2 lots. And again, if somebody, certainly McGordy, if he wanted to buy lot C right of way or parcel C could, but she could not sell parcel D to Orlando or any other abutter probably, unless we were to cut some of the frontage off and add it to parcel C, which would actually take another A&R plan. So at this point, she didn't want to change this plan and go back to the drawing board. She's perfectly happy with this. She has no intention to sell lot 4. So this plan is to create 2 legal building lots and 2 non-building parcels. And both of those are called out that way on the plan, that they're not to be considered separate building parcels, and they are to remain with the owner of lot 4.
Okay. Jim, go ahead.
Actually, Randy discussed and explained all of the things that we talked about. Our discussions were involving parcel C and D, but he explained it. I think it's a good solution.
Any questions from the board? I will make a motion then to approve a plan of land. Kristen, could you just move over to the date and on the bottom right? I just can't see it. Okay, I'll make a motion to approve, to endorse a plan of land at 103-107 South Street for Joanne Hoyler, dated, I can't read the date. Sorry, my eyes are terrible. 1/21/21. Is that right, Randy?
I just
I'm
have,
sorry, dated 1/27/21.
yeah.
I'll second that, Mark.
Thanks, Tim. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor, I'll do a roll call. Hazel?
Yes, to approve.
Yeah, Tim Kaler?
Yes to approve, Mark.
Tim Paris?
Yes, to approve.
And Jim?
Yes, to approve, Mark.
Okay, and I vote yes to approve as well. That's 5-0. Thanks, Randy.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Everybody stay well.
Thanks, Randy.
Take care, Randy.
Bye.
So I think we'll do the extension on Rugel Street at the end. Why don't we move straight to the continuation of the public hearing on West Park Drive if the applicant's ready. Mark Geralt, are you ready? And who's here with you?
Yes. Dan Feeney from Beals and Thomas and Scott Thornton from Vanessa are here with me.
Okay, and I think I see Jeff Bandini as well from McMahon. So Jim, I'm going to turn to you, Jim Robbins, first, and just have you introduce this, and then we'll turn to, I guess, Jeff Bandini first.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So as you know, this is a continuation of the special permit for the definitive subdivision plan for West Park Drive extension. The plan involves the extension of the existing West Park Drive, out the back of the current cul-de-sac through the land owned by Caruth Capital to Flanders Road, creating a new 3-way intersection with a signalized intersection and a multi-use bike and pedestrian trail to run alongside of this new road. At our last meeting, Beals and Thomas and the applicant, Mark Verreau, representing Caruth, presented the plans. This evening, we're going to discuss the traffic peer review. And again, as the board knows, we hired McMahon Associates to do a peer review of Vanessa Associates, who represents the applicant, traffic study. And this is customary. The town hires their own outside third party to review the work of the applicant's consultant. That being said, is Brian from Vanessa with us? I'm sorry, from McMahon.
Jeff Bandini is here with McMahon.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jeff.
That's okay.
Apologies.
That's
Thank you
okay.
for being with us.
No problem. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. You want me to give a overview of our methodology on the peer review?
Yes, please. And also, you submitted 2 reports. One was for the West Park Drive intersection, Flanders Road and Connector Road, and the other was for Old Flanders Road to Route 9. So could you present them in that order?
Sure thing. Again, thank you for having me. For the record, Jeff Bandini, project manager with McMahon Associates. So we were brought in by the town of Westborough to complete a peer review for the aforementioned project. And what we did was go through a comprehensive review of the study that Vanessa had put together, and looking through the methodology report and making sure that it was done in accordance with in consistency with standard engineering practice and transportation engineering standards, based on both Mass DOT, Federal Highway Administration, and AASHTO, and manual on traffic control devices, which is put out by the Transportation Research Board. So again, the beginning of the study, I don't know if you want to scroll through as I just go through here, as I have some notes in front of me as well. It just gives an overview of the project description, which again, Jim, you just went over. So the first thing that we did was take a look at the study area that was included in the study, just to make sure that all of the relevant intersections that the applicant thought would be most impacted by this development were included, in the study. So 5 intersections were included, which you can see at the bulleted list at the top. And again, along the north side of the study area, the intersection of Research Drive at Route 9, which is just east of the Connector Road intersection, that intersection was not included in the study area. So we just wanted the applicant to provide some level of feedback as to why that intersection was not included. And also due to the proximity to the Connector Road and Research Drive intersection, just to make sure that those intersections don't operate in tandem with respect to the traffic signal operations. So the next thing we did was look at the existing traffic volumes and look to see if they were collected in accordance with standard practice, if they needed to be seasonally adjusted, if there are any sort of issues with the data collection. So these intersection data was, collected, as it mentions, in May 2018 and January 19. So a lot of what we're wrestling with in the industry is just making sure that a lot of the data collection points are, were collected pre-COVID when, some of the traffic volumes have decreased as a matter of folks working from home and governor's orders and things like that. So these volumes were certainly collected within that time frame, and the application of some of the seasonal adjustments that the proponent had put together was certainly, met with, meet the industry standards for that sort of data collection. So the next thing we did was look at the observations at those locations that were included in the study area, namely along that north side of the site study area. So again, as I mentioned with the, COVID pandemic, a lot of the observations as far as operational issues, extended queuing and things like that were certainly not observed at the time of our observation. So, we were certainly limited in the amount that we could comment on those observations as well, but we certainly made that attempt in case there were any sort of, additional factors that we were not considering as part of our review. So safety was the next thing on the list. We looked at the applicant's crash data research and just wanted to suggest that the applicant provide information that was consistent with Mass DOT's recommendations to include 5 years of data, as opposed to the 3 years of data that was included in the study. As part of the data collection, the proponent collected field speed data and measured the 85th percentile speed along Flanders Road, and that methodology certainly suits standard practice and what we would expect to see out of that data collection and those results. So the site distance evaluation, again, as Jim mentioned, creating a new intersection along Flanders Road as a result of the extension. And the site distance evaluation was taken as if that intersection was being created as a new unsignalized location. So we just wanted to ensure that it was going to be taken, based on AASHTO guidelines, based on the new location of the proposed stop line, taken in with respect to vehicle operations, namely no turn on red, consistency for pedestrian accommodations, and making sure that the stop bar is located enough far back from, to provide those accommodations for pedestrians. And, just making sure the sight lines looking left and looking right from those locations, that location was adequate. So we wanted to, make sure the background growth and developments that are planned as part of the Westborough Office Park expansion. And not only that, but some other planned developments in the area were being incorporated into the data collection and analysis. So, in coordination with the town, we put together a list of developments that were planned both at the time that VAI submitted their study and both since that study was submitted. And there have been two such developments that are planned, the 4400 computer drive and 8 technology drive that you can see at the bottom of the screen. So we just want to make sure that when the numbers are being run and we're taking into consideration, traffic volumes and queuing and operations, that those additional trips from those developments are included. So, and again, we've had some contact with the town to ensure that, background traffic growth rate, which we determined to be, the applicant determined to be 1% per year, and that we confirmed was going to be adequate enough for the sufficient amount of background developments that are included as part of the study. So we looked at the trip generation characteristics of the site as well, using the Institute of Transportation Engineers methodology, which is, industry-wide, something that's accepted by municipalities and Mass DOT across the country. So there are different ways of establishing the amount of trips that development will or is estimated to generate. So one of the methodologies is determining the average rate, a summation of all of the different developments, and then determining size versus trips, and then determining that average, strictly, X and Y calculation essentially. And the other is to provide a fitted curve evaluation, which looks at all the data plots and provides like the best fit for all those data points. And that's, dependent on size and number of trips generated as far as that. So we just want the applicant to look at those both methodologies and compare, and just make sure that the methodology applied to that trip generation is appropriate. So one of the, and Jim alluded to this as well, is that we produced, a follow-up document regarding the Flanders Road portion of the study area, which is to the south and to the west, the proposed extension. So as part of this, the applicant talked about the redistribution of traffic along the West Park Drive extension as a result of opening the new intersection. So that would obviously result in a redistribution of some of the trips, both existing and new, not only for the office park, but for trips in the surrounding roadway network, as far as, from downtown Westborough going to and from the site. So the applicant did, use a redistribution volume of 10% to this direction. So we just wanted the applicant to, provide some sort of backup and justification for that number, especially since looking at some of the level of service and queue analysis from the intersection of Flanders Road at Connector Road was going to result in some predicted increase in, vehicle queues from the Flanders Road approach, both during the morning peak hour and the afternoon peak hour. Morning being, I believe, the more critical as folks arrive to work, from the southwest. So we just wanted to formulate some sort of measurable quantity as to what impact the development would have on that location in Flanders Road as a whole. And especially as we get to the Flanders Road at East Main Street intersection, which is located further to the west, that again, we included as part of our additional study. So the last thing, or one of the last things we did, was look at the geometry of the proposed signalized location. And the applicant formulated, that the intersection would connect directly to the 129 Flanders Road driveway. And as a result, would the Flanders Road eastbound approach would be located just west of the 133 Flanders Road driveway, which results in, some level of offset geometry for the intersection. So we just, requested that the applicant provide some level of feedback, not only in aligning this intersection, but providing the clearance calculations to make sure that the vehicles can successfully navigate through the intersection at the end of the yellow change interval and during the all red as well, just to provide sufficient safety traveling through the intersection. Because, as we looked at the proposed operations at this location, we certainly, agree with the methodology that was used and from my recollection, look at, all of the approaches seem to operate at acceptable levels of service. So, our concern more lies in the safety and efficiency of the intersection as a whole. So that pretty much wraps up a lot of what has to do with the operations and clearance calculations that I mentioned. So in conclusion, we, came up with 5 bulleted points that we would request that the applicant provide. A lot of what we discussed was clarifying points. I think the biggest thing for us is, we would suggest and recommend that the applicant provide, a monitoring program after the West Park Drive extension and signal is complete, just to make sure and validate some of the assumptions in the study, to make sure that there is nothing that is inconsistent with what is in the report. Make sure that the development didn't generate too many trips, or that the redistribution, fell too hard on one or more particular locations. And, want to make sure that the town is covered in terms of any sort of any sort of detraction from operations within the study area. So that's just a broad summation of what was included in the peer review. Jim would certainly be happy to present the findings from the Flanders Road, unless the board has any questions on the peer review specifically. I can answer before we get to that.
Yeah, why don't we hold off questions until you've had a chance to present the other study on Flanders Road, and then we can kind of address questions as a whole and hear from the applicant in response.
Okay, I'd be happy to do that. Okay, so this was sort of a, this assessment, traffic assessment, if you will, it was almost done in tandem with the West Park Drive extension, but it was almost done, as an independent document, to evaluate the, safety and operations of the 1.2 mile stretch of Flanders Road from East Main Street to the west to Connector Road to the east. And certainly both these intersections would see some measurable impact as a result of the West Park Drive extension, which was, kind of the impetus to providing this information to the town. So again, we provided those 2 locations, which I mentioned. If you want to scroll to the next page, if you don't mind. This is just a, for those that may be unfamiliar, just a overview of the study location. So you can see the red circles, the East Main Street to the west, Flanders and Connector to the east, almost at the center of the page. And then that yellow line is that yellow dash line is the proposed West Park Drive extension. So, you can see how relevant the study area is, and just from looking at a map of the study area, you can kind of conceive, what sort of impact that, we find that the West Park Drive extension may have on this portion of the study area. So, our assessment basically looked at the existing roadway network. Again, Flanders Road, that 1.2 mile stretch I mentioned and that we just saw on the previous slide, and also Connector Road, which essentially runs, east-west past Flanders, but also, turns back to the north to provide that connection towards the, Route 9 intersection. So we looked at geometry, operations, traffic volumes, and speed for those 2 roadways, and then again at the existing unsignalized intersections at each end. So again, both those intersections being key locations. So we collected our own traffic volumes. Again, as I mentioned at the outset, COVID has certainly resulted in if nothing else, a shift in traffic volumes and in a decrease at most locations, but certainly could make a case for a shift depending on, vehicle travel patterns to and from certain uses. So we collected our own volume data at those locations back on January 12th, just a few weeks ago, to provide some sort of measurable in terms of how that volume compares to pre-COVID numbers. So we were able to look at those volumes and compare them to what MassDOT had so graciously updated to their website recently. And we were able to grab the volume from the Flanders Road East Main Street from MassDOT, and then the Flanders Road or Connector Road volumes were from the VAI study. So that's the portion of this study that was kind of used in tandem with that. So again, in table 1 there, you can see the comparison of the 2018 volume and 2021 volume. Much less of a change at the East Main Street intersection, though there is some level of change, in a much more, dramatic change at the Flanders Road Connector Road intersection, most likely due to the decrease in office traffic, to that, portion of the study area. So, in order to bring those 2018 volumes from Mass DOT and from the VAI study up to what we like to call existing conditions, we looked at the 2021 projected volumes and then applied that factor to the 2018 counter volumes, which is what you see in table 2. So we're just kind of setting the stage for our methodology as to how we're going to assess, this intersection and study area as far as, safety and traffic operations. So if you want to just scroll to the next page, I can talk a little bit about that. So the table 3 shows the average daily traffic based on, a different count that we obtained from Mass DOT. And Mass DOT, like I mentioned, has been gracious enough to upload a lot of data that they hadn't done pre-COVID. So we were able to collect average daily traffic on Flanders Road, about 5,500 vehicles per day. Next page, please. So this just kind of gives an overview of the turning movement count volumes. Quote unquote, a stick volume figure. It just kind of gives you a snapshot of what the volumes look like both in the AM peak hour, which is the numbers without parentheses, and then the PM numbers directly next to it. So the numbers I like to key in on, and I think, the town and some other folks should key on, is that Flanders Road westbound approach to East Main Street, 126 in the AM and 217 in the PM. As we start to talk about traffic operations, that number is, certainly significant. Those are the volumes. That's what we like to call the critical approach. That's the approach that has to stop and has to wait for, essentially 2 gaps in traffic, a gap from the northbound and southbound approach. And if you kind of compare those volumes against the through traffic, you can kind of picture in your head, what sort of delay that might result in. The other critical number here is the Flanders Road. So what we did as part of this assessment is we reoriented Flanders Road to be northbound, southbound, just because of the geometry at the intersection with Connector Road. So you can see that Flanders Road right turn approach 272 in the morning and 193 in the afternoon. So again, the right turn is a lot less of a critical than the left turn. There's only that one gap to overcome, if you will. So that operation is not as critical, but certainly something that was measured as part of the VAI study, and certainly something that we would keep an eye on in terms of increasing traffic as part of the West Park Drive extension. So we looked at the crash data. Again, we used Mass DOT consistent with methodology for other traffic studies. And we looked at 5 years of data, 2013 through 2017, which is the latest volume, crash data volume set that we have available to us. And we found that the East Main Street approach is actually about twice the average District 3 and statewide for unsignalized intersections. And, certainly as we, get further on in the assessment, we talk about field observations that we made on our own as part of this assessment, and found that, due to the existing queue, there may be some, traffic along East Main Street that kind of stops in the roadway to let folks from Flanders Road turn left into the intersection, which can certainly result in a lot of, courtesy crashes, rear ends, angles, and, folks not expecting, other drivers to just stop in the middle of the roadway. So that could certainly be, one of the reasons that crash data is realized at that location. So at the bottom of the page, you can see, we created 3 speed study data sets as part of this. East Main, Flanders, and Connector essentially are 3 main roadways within the study. East Main Street and Flanders with the 30-mile-an-hour posted speed limit, and Connector Road with the 40-mile-an-hour speed limit. And what we like to do is take a series of data points, generally, off peak hours, so that, vehicles can travel at what we call free flow speeds, so that we're not we're not measuring speeds during the peak hour when there's more delay and vehicles are traveling at lower speeds to begin with. So, we compare that data, and the metric that we like to key in on is the 85th percentile, the speed that 85% of vehicles are traveling at or below. So, those measurables certainly point to, there being some level of speeding going on in the area. Flanders Road, namely 30-mile-an-hour speed limit, 40-mile-an-hour 85th percentile, and connector roads realizing not much more of a difference, a delta, if you will, between the 85th and speed limit. So these speed data not only comes into play when it has to do with safety concerns and things like that, but it has to do with evaluating our sight distance information and making sure that when vehicles approach the critical movements, they can look left, they can look right, and not have to worry about enough distance in order to make a decision to access the adjacent roadway. So that's kind of where that speed data came in. So we took that and we looked at the available sight distance information, again, based on our site visit. So we looked at the available sight distance in comparison with that 85th percentile and found that the critical metric based on AASHTO requirements being the stopping sight distance, we found that the approaches exceeded that metric based on the 85th percentile. So the roadways are certainly provide sufficient time for folks along the adjacent roadway to react if there was an object in the roadway, and provides enough sufficient distance for folks along the minor roadway to access the major road. So I mentioned some of the traffic observations already with respect to safety. So I'll just touch on the Flanders Road and Connector Road intersection in terms of, due to the geometry of the intersection, it's kind of like a T intersection because it operates with one minor approach under stop control. But essentially what we found in our site evaluation was that a lot of those vehicles kind of treated it as like a rolling stop. So, certainly something we would watch for from a safety perspective. But it also kind of tricks you into thinking that the operations are actually a little bit better at that intersection than they probably should be, assuming that all the folks actually stop as they would be by rights to do as part of the existing traffic control at that location. So we wanted to take everything that we kind of put together and just kind of put it into some sort of summation as to how we feel the study area would function as part of the West Park Drive extension, and kind of tying that back into how we feel the two reports are related. So when we looked at the future, what we call no-build traffic volumes, and compare them to the build traffic volumes and no-build volumes, looking at, if the West Park Drive extension is not constructed, the build volumes looking at if it was constructed, and then comparing those metrics, namely delay and vehicle queuing at those locations, and just comparing those. If you don't mind just kind of scrolling down a little bit. We already kind of went over a little bit of this with the background growth as part of my summation on the West Park Drive project. So if you scroll down a little bit more, you'll see some of the metrics with respect to vehicle queuing and operational statistics with respect to the additional volumes at that location. I think it's on the next page or the page after. So that gives you a comparison of how we expect the no build and build volumes to compare. So you can kind of see that increase in volumes. Again, a little bit more pronounced for the Flanders Road and Connector Road intersection, just because of the amount of through traffic on Connector Road. Next page, if you don't mind, thank you. This is just a stick diagram of the build volumes itself. So again, we key in on those critical movements to, northbound Flanders Road, right turn onto Connector, and then the Flanders Road left turn onto East Main. Next page. So that just gives an overview of what level of service is relative to the highway capacity manual. And so table 8 is kind of the summation of everything that I've kind of explained throughout, both the West Park Drive extension, and then this study is just talking about, the increase in delay as part of that West Park Drive extension, and also increase in vehicle queuing as well. So, we boiled that all down to well, what does that mean? And what is that anticipated to mean as the West Park Drive extension gets constructed? That intersection becomes signalized, and theoretically more folks use that intersection to access, not only the Westborough Office Park, but use as a potential alternative means of access throughout the town. So we boiled all that into the traffic signal warrant summary, consistent with the manual on traffic control devices. So we used the information that we had at our fingertips from Mass DOT in conjunction with the information that was collected as part of the West Park Drive extension study. And essentially we boiled that down to looking at if this intersection meets warrants based on 4 levels of criteria: 8-hour volumes, 4-hour volumes, peak hour volumes, and crash history. So the crash history, in spite of it being above, MassDOT district average, did not meet for either location. And we found that, under existing volumes, which means no West Park Drive extension, under existing conditions using the volumes that we collected herein, this intersection certainly provides sufficient vehicle volume to meet warrants under existing conditions for both locations. Now, I will say that the Flanders Road at Connector Road location, again, does include a lot of, minor street right turns, which is certainly less critical. Right turns only have one gap to overcome in order to access the adjacent roadway. So if there were to be some discussion about a potential signal at that location, and again, that's under DOT control, and I didn't mention that at the beginning, just because of the, how Connector Road was constructed and its connectivity to, the Route 9 area. So there would have to be some sort of process to go through with Mass DOT in order to get a signal constructed at that location. Certainly, I would think that there would be some sort of follow-up and in data collection. I'm not sure if they would accept new counts at this point, and I'm not so sure that they would want to install signal based on counts that are, some measurable of a few years old, in terms of, we're using this more of a metric to determine, are these intersections on the right track to have an intersection, a signalized intersection constructed in the near future. We think, based on all the volumes, there's certainly, an appetite and a potential need for those in the future. So in summary, we just kind of provided, a list of bullet points to kind of go over a lot of the methodologies I've discussed this evening, and just kind of gives you a sense of what it is that, we're looking at, and just to kind of keep an eye on this location as the West Park Drive extension gets progressed through, through this stage and through the approval phase, in terms of, the impact that this could potentially have on future operations and safety within the study area. And be happy to take any questions. Before I get to that, so that was a summation. Recommendations, just 5 bullet points based on, our findings, again, suggesting a monitoring program for post-construction, and then some, geometric improvements, and then some feedback signage along the main roadways to reduce that 85th percentile. That's something that, studies have definitely shown that speed feedback signage does reduce vehicle speed. So that's something that, the town could find useful in, helping to reduce crashes within the study area. So I'd be certainly happy to take any questions on either the West Park Drive extension peer review or our evaluation of the Flanders Road intersection or roadway at this time.
Jeff, thanks for that presentation.
Thank you.
I'd like to turn to the applicant just for, Mark and Scott, I don't know how long you've had these peer review studies, and if you're ready to respond today, or if you want some time to formulate a response, and I just wanted to hear from you first.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Scott, for the record, Scott Thornton with Vanessa and Associates, were the traffic engineers for the applicant. And we did receive the comments related to, I I guess, the peer review of the traffic study. We received those Friday. We intend to provide a formal response to those comments. I think, in general, I didn't see anything that was, a major issue for us to respond to. In terms of this, the Flanders Road study, we had not seen that. And this is the first that we're hearing of the information. I'm not surprised at some of the conclusions that were excuse me, that were reached. But again, we haven't really had a chance to. Again, this is the first I'm hearing of the second review for Flanders Road. So I'd like to provide a more detailed response at a later date.
Yeah. No, and I'm fine with that. If you don't mind, we'll turn to the board then, see if they have any questions on Jeff's presentation, and that, and we'll look for a formal response from you at a future meeting. All right. So does anybody on the board have a question? I'll just go through and Jim Ball, did you have anything?
No, it's pretty straightforward, Mark.
Okay.
Thank you.
Tim Kaler? Tim,
Nothing for me, Mark. Thank you.
okay. Tim Paris
Nothing from me.
and Hazel?
I just have one question. From reading this, is it my understanding that you're not recommending a traffic signal at East Main and Flanders Road?
Jeff, can you respond?
Yeah, so thank you for the question. So our methodology in the study certainly pointed to the fact that a signal is warranted at this location. At this time, I believe that's, certainly up to, how we want to proceed with this location. If the town feels that the signal is warranted and they agree with the findings of the study, we could certainly help. We could certainly help try to get a signal installed at that intersection based on the feedback that we provided in the report. All the methodology is there. The data collection is sound. We have data from a few different sources that can corroborate that information. So at this time, it would be up to the town whether they wanted to pursue a signal at that location.
Thank you.
Mark, may I speak?
Mark.
Yeah, Mark Veralt, go ahead.
I think a lot of the data from this study predates the Lyman Street Route 9 improvement. Having worked at 116 Flanders Road since for the past 26 years, I can tell you that I would not go down Flanders Road to East Main Street with the new improvements. I've been to planning board meetings and I take Route 9 and I take a left onto Flanders Road now that those improvements are there. I mean, maybe if they put a light at the end of Flanders Road in East Main, I might go that route, but it's crazy to go down that route because you just can't take a left turn there. So I think a lot of Jeff's analysis might be dated if it goes prior to the Lyman Street improvement, because I can tell you what human nature is because I work there, and it's crazy to go that route. And also anybody who works at Westborough Office Park, especially 90% of the people, they aren't going to go down West Park Drive to take a right onto Flanders Road, to take a left onto Flanders Road, when they can just go right out Research Drive and get onto Route 9. I mean, they wouldn't drive up to 2.5 miles out of their way because it doesn't save time. People that are going to use this road, West Park Drive extension, are going to be heading towards Ashland and Southborough. They're not going to drive the extra miles. Now, maybe if there's a snowstorm and Route 9 is blocked and they have another escape route, yes, but that's going to be, once every year or so, right?
Thanks, Margaret. I appreciate your opinion there. I guess my question for Jeff, your study seems to indicate that there's already an existing condition at East Main Street in Flanders that would warrant a traffic signal. This West Park Drive improvement would increase that, but I believe you said that if a signal was put at the East Main Street in Flanders, that would make it easier for people to use that intersection and probably result in even further increase. Is that a fair summary of what you said?
I'll just elaborate on that. So once the West Park Drive extension is completed, just looking at it from a pure desire line perspective, if you were heading, south and west of the site towards, Westborough Town Center, you would theoretically come down West Park Drive, take a right, and then take a left onto Flanders, and then take a left on East Main. Now we understand, there's other alternative means of access, which is how you would get to that location now. We certainly understand that, but like you mentioned, it is an existing problem. So my concern is that putting in the West Park Drive extension is just going to provide an additional means to get to that East Main Street intersection. So we just want to make sure that the town is aware that that could potentially add more traffic to the critical movement, which is just going to contribute to more delay within the study area. Now, again, it's up to the choice of the, driver as to once that West Park Drive extension is completed as to what the shortest route is. For folks along the north side of the Westborough Office Park, if they find that, it's not worth it to come all the way down and take a right, and they're just going to go the same way that they've gone before, then, that's the way that they're going to go. Our study is just simply saying there's a possibility that may happen. Now, the VAI study showed that about 10% of the volume would contribute to that, maybe not essentially that left turn, but towards that intersection. So that can include folks that either live on Flanders Road, or one of the side streets along there that, exit the West Park Drive and then, find their way to Flanders Road that way. So we just want to make the town aware that that's a possibility.
Yeah, and Mr. Chairman, if I could just follow up on that. So we did assign about 10% of the overall shift in project traffic to Flanders Road. As Jeff indicated, there's a number of residences along that street that we would expect to filter off some of that traffic. But we also, there's a percentage of overall traffic coming from the town of Westborough. And, again, dovetailing on what Mark indicated, Lyman Street wasn't complete, and Lyman Street was typically backing up around the curve at the time of the initial traffic counts for the study. So there's nothing that says that some of that traffic that we had assigned to Flanders Road might find other routes to go into Westborough. Might come down to Lyman Street, might come down to Otis, or might even come down to Route 30. I think that, that the operation, the unsignalized operation at Flanders and East Main Street is sort of self-restricting to some extent, because people that aren't familiar with that, if they take that road a couple times expecting it to be a shortcut, they're not going to get that kind of result. So that traffic may the next time go back out through Research Drive, connect into Route 9, and then take Route 9 to some of their other access points or their final destination points.
So I guess what I'm trying to balance is that the residential nature of that section of Flanders Road and the desire to reduce traffic, and also, I'm trying to balance that against my desire to have employees have adequate access to downtown Westborough to come down for lunch or to come down and use, pick up groceries or whatever. So I think the decision to put a light there is probably above my pay grade, and it's something the Board of Selectmen would have to decide on. But I'm just trying to figure out what contribution this new West Park Drive intersection will have on traffic in that area, and whether there's a relationship.
Mr. Chairman, could I try to,
Jim, I was going to turn to you next anyway, because you didn't get a chance to hear from you yet. So thanks. Go ahead.
I wanted to address that question because that was something that I've written down. And this is for Jeff. So Jeff, looking at your report for additional projected traffic volumes at the intersection of Flanders and East Main Street under the build scenario, I believe you showed 6 to 7% increase. Is that correct?
Yeah, that sounds reasonable. And again, that's, the 10% from the West Park Drive extension, and then probably a few percent drop off, within that segment. So I believe that's around 6 or 7%. Yeah.
Yeah, I copied that down from your table that we showed on the screen. So and again, that 6 or 7% is a range or a guesstimate, because even though it's based on real numbers, people need to make choices which way they're going to go. And I know there's a percentage assigned to turning movements based on the build scenario. So making a left-hand turn from Flanders Connector Road down Flanders Road towards East Main Street obviously is a discretionary decision. My question is 6% a significant increase to an intersection that we know already is broken?
I would say probably not, but given that 6%, again, is just an estimation. Now, it could certainly turn out to be more than that. It could certainly turn out to be a little bit less than that. And not to try to play the middle here. And that's why we wanted to recommend, a monitoring program after West Park Drive is completed, is just to kind of validate the assumptions in the applicant's study, is just to say, okay, we thought it was going to be 10% this way, and say that 6 or 7% is not significant. Well, if we try to validate that assumption and it turns out to be 20%, now we're talking 15%.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how is that significant, right? Like, I guess it's all in the eye of how the town feels that intersection is impacted. Now, if it were to be a 15% increase at that location, could that approach even process 15% more? Like, is there going to be some sort of inherent limit to how much that traffic volume can increase because folks just simply won't use it?
Mm-hmm.
Something that we have to consider. There's certainly a maximum level of how that intersection would function given its existing operations if you were to add any more traffic to it. And that's just what the monitoring program aims to validate, is comparing numbers, and if the town feels that a signal is warranted there, then that's something that we could certainly pursue.
Sure. And so I think, therefore, your recommendation to monitor the traffic on Flanders Road post going live on the new intersection under the build scenario is probably a really good thing the board should consider in approving this subdivision plan. Is once the traffic signal is live and the West Park Drive extension is complete and the new signalized intersection is up and running, maybe a year after it's in the live mode, you have traffic counters placed on Flanders Road to see if there is a significant, to see what the increase is in actuality, whatever that is. And then I think the town will have a better idea what we should do at that intersection.
Certainly. And again, that wasn't the only recommendation that, we included in the study. I mean, there's certainly geometric modifications that could be done in the meantime, to improve operations and safety within the study area. So, No, I think the monitoring program is good. I think there's certainly some merit to some other improvements if the town wanted to look into those as well.
Okay. And can we go back to just to switch subjects here, to the first portion of your report regarding Washington Lane? You made a couple observations and recommendations regarding Washington Lane. If Kristen is able, can she share that document again? The first document. And I only ask this because I'm not sure I understand.
Okay.
If you go, is that it? That is it. So I believe it was the third bullet. Keep going.
Talking about the recommendations at the end.
Yeah, we're going to the recommendations.
Okay.
So the third and fourth bullets. Shared left through, left turn and through lane, and an
Yes.
exclusive right-hand lane from southbound on Washington. Can you explain that?
Yeah, so that just had to do with the conceptual plan that the applicant put in the appendix and used as part of the evaluation of the intersection, with respect to traffic operations. So I believe it was, because of the geometry of the intersection, we weren't showing any through movements from the southbound approach due to the geometry of in connectivity to the, I believe it was 126 Flanders or 129? I have it written down here.
Yeah, 129.
Yeah, 129, that's the one. So we just wanted to make sure that the applicant was considering all types of different lane configurations. I believe, I believe the result of this bullet point is you want to make sure that we're recommending, not recommending, the applicant should consider a shared left turn and through lane and exclusive right turn lane, just in case there does happen to be, one through movement from that location, that they're not blocking the progression of right turns. It almost seems like there's some appetite for either right turn on red, which again kind of ties back into the sight distance comment that we made earlier. And also if there plans to be some sort of functionality for a additional right turn phase based on, the intersection operations. So we just want to make sure that the applicant is looking at all sorts of possibilities for, lane configuration, if it's going to be a shared left and through, or if it's going to be a left and then a through right. We just want to make sure that that's looked at from an optimal point of view and that the intersection can function to its full capacity and capability.
Yeah, I think those are good questions. I believe the applicant looked at those things, and the intersection is constrained by topography, abutting wetlands, and a private abutter on the other side that will not sell any of their land or allow any geometric, topographic changes to their property to improve the intersection. So I got Scott to respond to that.
Okay.
Yeah, you pretty much summed it up, Jim. We are constrained on either side of West Park Drive or Washington Lane. And in terms of the through movement, we didn't really consider that there would be a volume going into, coming from the office park into a private driveway, but it's a good point to make sure that the right turn movement can proceed, unencumbered. So that's something that we'll look at. Absolutely.
Okay. And lastly, Scott, will you be able to create a written response for the planning board for our next meeting?
We have started putting together some responses. Again, we'll we'll look at we need to get a copy of this. You want us to respond to this, to the second Flanders Road report as well, or just the?
Yeah, and I'll see that you get that. I'm sorry that you don't have that.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So, yeah, I mean, we should be able to pull something together in, the next meeting is 2 weeks from today.
Yes, the 16th.
Yeah. Okay. Yep, we should be able to do that.
Okay.
All right. So Jim, is that everything you had?
Yes, thank you very much for your patience.
No, that's great. So I think that is enough on the traffic end of this now until we hear from Scott and with a formal response. I know that we had a note from Lisa Elaine, the town engineer, telling us that they're still working with Beals and Thomas and on-site engineering to finalize the engineering plans. So I'm not sure if we're ready to tackle that tonight. Jim, am I right on that?
No, we should allow Lisa to have her discussions with both Beals and Thomas and onsite. As you know, onsite is our peer reviewer because Lisa has some questions and she would like the plans further developed. She wants to meet with Dan and with Tom from Beals and Thomas to discuss that.
Okay. I know that we did get a letter from the Transportation Committee, and I just wanted to make sure that that was sent over to Beals and Thomas as well to respond to. Jim, do you know if that was done or Dan?
Yes, they have a copy of the letter.
Okay. So maybe we'll wait on that until we're ready to tackle the whole engineering part of this, unless anybody has questions right now.
Mark, if you have that letter in front of you, can you just read the date on the letter and who it's from into the record so that we can consider that officially received?
Yeah, I do. I have, I just had it up, sorry. It's from, Kristen, do you have a copy of that handy? I'm sorry, I put it away. Okay, yeah, here it is. It's from the, dated January 28th from the advisory, from Julie Squires, Chair of the Town of Westborough Active Transportation and Safety Committee regarding the proposed extension of West Park Drive. And there's about 6 different points they wanted to make. Do you want me to go through those, Jim?
No, why don't you allow the applicant an opportunity to prepare a response?
Okay, well, that I agree with that. So I think that's everything from the board. Any other comments before I look for public comments? Okay, Kristen, do we have anything from the public?
I do not have anything in the email.
Okay, so I think at this point we're ready to continue this to our next meeting. If everyone's ready, why don't we continue it? I'll make a motion to continue this to February 16th, meeting at 6. I'm sorry, make a motion to continue the public hearing on West Park Drive extension to February 16th at 6:30.
Second that, Mark.
I heard a second from Hazel first. Any discussion of the motion? Okay, all those in favor, I'll do a roll call vote again. Jim Ball,
Yes.
Hazel Nurse,
Yes.
Tim Kaler,
Yes.
and Tim Paris,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well to continue. That's 5-0. All right. Thank you all for coming in tonight. We'll see you in 2 weeks, and hopefully we'll get through the engineering piece that night and hear your response on the traffic. So, thank you, Mark, and Scott, and Jeff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I
Great.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to move to the next item on the agenda. We have a letter from Karen Keegan, GBI Construction, dated January 29th, requesting an extension on 228 Rugel Street. Jim Robbins, her extension requested through March 12th. I believe that's a Friday.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is a Friday, Mr. Chairman. That was deliberate. I requested that date from her. We talked about it. The reason for that is if they are in fact ready for the next meeting and we move to accept the comments that she has and the changes of the plan, and we receive written comments from the building commissioner about the zoning compliance on the lot that's in question, then we can move to a decision. I wanted the remaining days in that week to finish the decision.
Okay. So you think she'll be ready by the 9th?
I'm hoping.
All right. All right. Any questions? Any questions from the board on the 228 Ruggles? Okay, I'll make a motion to continue the subdivision. Make a motion to continue the preliminary subdivision plan on 228 Rugel Street to March 12th, 2000, or through March 12th, 2021.
Second.
Okay, Tim Paris, I think that was you, right?
That was.
Okay. All those in favor, we'll do a roll. Any discussion of the motion? Okay. All those in favor, we'll do a roll call again. Tim Paris,
Yes.
Jim Ball,
Yes.
Hazel Nurse,
Yes.
and Kaler.
Yes, Mark.
Okay, and I vote yes as well. That's 5-0 to continue. Next item on the agenda, we have listed an appointment to the Master Plan Committee to represent the Cultural Council. I know that the Cultural Council is meeting tomorrow night to vote on who that will be. So I think we're going to continue this or just take this up at the next meeting once we have word from the Cultural Council who they would like to represent them on the Master Plan Committee. Any questions? Okay, Jim Robbins, I think the last item, well, other than minutes, is you were going to give us an update on ongoing projects.
Sure, thank you very much. So as you know, the master plan is moving forward, and our next meeting is going to be a public meeting similar to the one that we had last year in February. This year, obviously, it will be virtual. Everyone is invited, the public is invited, and this is to talk about the end or completion of phase 1 of the master plan, which is Westborough Reflects. We have developed our goals for each of our 9 subcommittees. We have developed our vision statement, and we want to share those with the public and ask for the public to comment on them. And then we're going to provide an opportunity for the public to choose one of our 9 areas of concentration, and they'll be invited to enter into a room with the members of each subcommittee. There they can offer suggestions on that area of interest. Say, for example, they're interested in housing, or maybe they're interested in land use. They could enter into those subcommittees for discussion. Hopefully the small group format will allow some creative ideas. And that is going to be February 18th. That's a Thursday. Thursday, February 18th. The meeting has been announced on the town's webpage with instructions on how to join the meeting. There'll also be a press release that will appear in the paper. And so anybody that has any questions is welcome to reach out to the planning board office, either through the town's webpage or at my email or Kristen Belanger's email. If you have a question, we'll respond to it prior to the meeting. I hope as many people as possible can make that meeting. I have no further update on any of the projects. I wasn't sure how far we were going to get on West Park Drive tonight, but we did talk about traffic. So I don't want to give any further updates on that at this time because we continued the hearing.
Yeah, so I just wanted to remind everybody about the westboroughmasterplan.com website. That's westboroughmasterplan.com. And that has all the details on the upcoming public meeting, including the link to join the Zoom So if anybody wants those details, or hopefully we'll get some good turnout for that. It should be a really important meeting for the progress of the master plan. So, Jim, anything else then before we turn to the minutes?
I see Hazel has her hand up.
Oh, Hazel, go ahead.
Perfect. I have a question. I remember, and I may have brought this up before, that when the project across from the hospital, across the post office was built, whose name I suddenly can't remember, there was some money that they were supposed to give for a traffic light at Flanders Road and Route 30. What's
Yes.
happened with that?
Thank you. I can answer that, Mr. Chairman, through you.
Okay.
We did establish a fund for East Main Street and Flanders Road traffic signalization. The Highlands is the name of the project you're trying to think of, at 129 East Main Street. They did contribute a sum of money, as did the project further down on Flanders Road, almost at the Southborough border, which was called Avalon Mills. They also contributed to that fund in the future. So it's been started. There's not enough money for a traffic signal. We need about $250,000 on today's prices for the traffic signal. And I only know that because we applied for one for the West Park Drive extension. As you know, the MassWorks grant is going to pay for that. So we don't have $250,000 in that fund yet.
Is there, I mean, I'm thinking about the possibility, for example, we've got the hospital going in, the care facility. That's, you know, that is another project that I was wondering, was that taken into account when they did their traffic study? But that would be the sort of project that we might get a contribution out of. So, I mean, I think anything we can do to build that fund will obviously make the town more amenable to seeing that something like that is constructed.
Through the chair, yes, I think that's a good suggestion. They haven't submitted their site plan application yet. I expect that probably within the month, they will be required to do a traffic study. At that time, I think that should be brought up, and we will share with them the traffic study and the peer review that was done here for West Park Drive.
Okay. So Hazel, I would just encourage you to bring that up in the public hearing as well, just so that, you know, it gets out there for, you know, everyone to hear that we're discussing that. But, you know, I think it's a great point.
Which public hearing? This one on West Park
This
Drive?
one or the future one.
Oh, okay.
Either one or both. How's that?
Right. Will do. Okay.
All right. I think that's it then, other than the minutes. So Jim Ball, do you want to do those?
I don't think.
Mark, I don't think we have it. We don't have any minutes.
Oh,
We
I'm
did
sorry. Just on the
for the 19th minute yet, the 19th meeting yet. Excuse me.
Sorry about that. It's on the agenda, so I just assumed we had one.
Okay.
All right. Any other business? Okay. Hearing none, I will make a motion to adjourn.
I can second that.
Okay. We'll do a roll. All those in favor?
Yes.
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 Okay. Then I vote yes as well. That's 5-0 in favor. Thank you, guys. I'll see you in 2 weeks.
Take care, everybody.
Safe.
Thank you.
Oh, Jim, I forgot to get an update on your knee.